February, the weather is still chilly in the temperate zone of the Northern Hemisphere, but the daffodil flower in the wind seems to announce the arrival of spring. In fact, it was not until 1780 when an international organization for meteorology defined spring as the months of March, April, and May. Prior to that, Europeans used to associate February with early spring. For instance, 14th century writer Geoffrey Chaucer described birds mating on Valentine's Day in a popular poem. The traditional concept remains in today's Ireland, where the Celtic calendar marks the beginning of spring in February. There was a similar definition of spring in ancient China. On the Chinese-defined first day of spring, which would be on or around February 4th, the emperor had to plow a field in front of many people. He was putting on a show to encourage farmers to work hard, because this would be the time of year for farmers to start working after their winter break. In the meantime, Chinese people would eat spring rolls to symbolize biting into spring, but this tradition is no longer a must-do. People nowadays can have spring rolls all year round. It's the traditional Chinese almanac that marks the beginning of spring on or around February 4th. It may be February 3rd or February 5th, depending on when the sun reaches the celestial longitude of 315 degrees. Based on the movement of sunlight, the Chinese almanac divides the year into 24 solar terms, which have been recognized by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization since 2016 as Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity. Each solar term is 15 to 16 days long, so there are 6 solar terms in each of the 4 seasons, making the annual total 24. The first solar term of spring is called the Lichun in Chinese. It always overlaps with the 15-day celebration of Lunar New Year, which starts with the new moon between January 21st and February 20th. Even when Lunar New Year's Day falls in January, the last few days of the 15-day celebration will go into the first solar term of spring. That's why Lunar New Year is also known as the Spring Festival. Of course, the weather is still very cold during the first solar term of spring in the Yellow River region of northern China, where the solar terms were invented. However, ancient Chinese meteorologists found ice starting to melt during this time of year. So they said, east winds begin to unfreeze everything during the first 5-day period of this solar term. They divided the solar term, Lichun, into 3 parts. Each part is 5 to 6 days long. According to their observations, the second part of Lichun is when a small number of hibernating insects may start to wake up. The last part of Lichun is when fish swim under floating ice sheets. Obviously, they had enough evidence to call this time of year the beginning of spring. February looks more like spring in the Yangtze River region of eastern central China thanks to blooming flowers. These golden yellow floral clusters are called winter jasmine in English, but yingchunhua in Chinese, which means spring welcoming flowers. They burst into bloom in early February in the Yangtze River region of eastern central China, so they're the first of the 3 flower species that represent the first solar term of spring. Next are cherry blossoms. Please note that these trees will bear edible cherries. They become flower-laden in early to mid-February in eastern central China, about a month or 2 earlier than those ornamental cherry trees. The third flower species that embellishes the first solar term of spring is Magnolia. White magnolia flowers start blooming in mid-February in eastern central China. Some of them have pinkish petals. They all look adorable. Interestingly, magnolia trees in Northern California also come into bloom in February. Apparently, the Chinese solar terms can be applied to other places in the temperate zone of the Northern Hemisphere. There will be new videos about the other 23 solar terms on this channel. Please stay tuned. For now, let's enjoy all the early signs of spring.